Kenya Christians Professionals Forum has called on Azimio leader Raila Odinga to reconsider his call for 3 days of protest next week and instead offer another alternative that will not lead to the destruction of property and loss of lives. The forum also called on the president to abandon his hard stance on policies already adopted in the Finance Act, arguing that the hard stance only guarantees destruction of property.
As the opposition maintains that the 3-day protests in the coming week are on, the Kenya Christians Professionals have called on the Azimio leader to reconsider the protests and instead offer another alternative, arguing that the protests have only led to loss of property and lives. In their statement, the forum says, "Dear Honorable Raila Odinga, we plead with you to consider the plight of Kenyans and the adverse effects of sustained demonstrations on both the economy you are trying to salvage and the general welfare of the people of Kenya." End of quote. The forum also called on President William Ruto to reconsider his hard stance on the Finance Act, arguing that it only guarantees disruption of business, loss of property and earnings for innocent Kenyans, and a postponement of solutions to our worsening economy. The statement reads, in a quote, "With even greater emphasis, we plead with the executive led by His Excellency President William Ruto to abandon their hardline stance on the policies already adopted, and particularly those on taxation through the Finance Act of 2023. They have also argued that some of the policies in the Finance Act will only make the situation worse for Kenyans. We recognize that the path back to the tracks of prosperity after the pandemic needed robust and aggressive policies. On the contrary, certain policies from the current government have only served to exacerbate an already worse situation. The Finance Act of 2023 is one such culmination of policy turned law that has Kenyans struggling to breathe. We cannot tax ourselves to prosperity." The forum also condemned the use of force on demonstrators. Ever since the demonstrations began, more than 15 people have lost their lives as others nurse gunshot wounds. We condemn in the heaviest terms the excessive use of police force. Peaceful and armed demonstrators should not be met with tear gas and, worst of all, live bullets. Similarly, we condemn those individuals who have taken advantage of the protest to vandalize private property and public infrastructure and outright loot under the pretext of exercising their constitutional right. Azimio leader Raila Odinga has maintained that the anti-government protests will go on as planned as he seeks to push the government to the edge. President William Ruto, however, has reiterated that the government will not bend to the will of the opposition. Branham, I look up TV.